In this music business segment, we're going to talk about why releasing music on Spotify is pointless. All right, so number one, the reason why releasing your music on Spotify is pointless is because you don't take the time, which is about 30 minutes really, to set up your Spotify for Artists profile. Is this super difficult?
No, but it is a process that you have to go through, and I recently set it up for my artist producer page, and I thought it was going to actually be way more of a headache than it actually was. It didn't. It took like a few minutes actually to go do it.
Yeah, and collectively. So this is the first one. I'm going to talk about essentially six that work together and make it so that if you don't do these things, Spotify is useless for you. But if you
Mm.
do these things, your releases can be successful. So number one, setting up the artist profile. So just go and get it, log in. But
Mm.
then it's things like have a minimum of 2 to 3 profile pictures and make sure they're not super degraded, low quality photos, right? You don't have to go and hire a photographer, but if you can, upgrade your camera phone, right? Get something that looks at least somewhat decent. So 2 to 3 at least. Also, can we please get a little paragraph bio that you add? You absolutely should put it in your
Yes,
voicing.
yes.
Don't overinflate, but you're trying to engage the person who might like one of your songs that they stumbled
Mhm.
across and give them a reason why they should follow you. Are you kind of weird or interesting, or maybe you're just super fun and happy and you have a positive outlook? So give a bio that makes people interested in you. Link your social media. I need to be able to find you and love you and follow you. So link your Instagram and your Facebook and your TikTok if it's still in existence soon. And you can do things like also connect your Shopify. Okay, so you can sell stuff on the actual platform. And then last but not least, make sure that you are creating artist playlists. Okay, so if you create a playlist with like a couple of your songs, but then some other artists that are similar to you, give someone a reason to kind of listen to your stuff. And Spotify is really happy when you take these steps because you're making Spotify look good. Okay, so that's number one. Okay. Number two is, pitching to Spotify playlists. Now, this is something that you do. Our kind of golden rule is to do this like 30 days before the song comes out. What would you say is probably like some of the most important stuff when you are pitching for Spotify official playlist consideration?
Think being short and concise with your actual there's a portion where you're selecting where your genres and all the different things in your categories your song, but where the real pressure kind of feels like is where you're telling them what your promotional plans are for the song, and just like what the song kind of is, and because you're pitching it, you got to give it, but you have to do it in a concise way. You have to make it kind of interesting, and but it's the only way that you're going to get on an official Spotify playlist. There's a lot of playlists out there that will be like, we will put you on metal playlist, you know what I mean, and but it's not like a Spotify playlist. And a lot of time these submission things where you submit to playlists are just, you'll find that the people that are following the playlist are other artists that have submitted to be on that playlist. It's just kind of like a pyramid thing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's
So well, I'll give you some extra tips too, right? So you can also just remember that sometimes they're adding you an artist to lists weeks after the
yeah,
song actually has come out. So
yeah.
you have to get it in at least 30 days before your song drops, okay? But they might add you later on. So in your little pitch, anything that's kind of cool. Are you working with a cool producer? Is there a particular name? Were you on other playlists? Are you going on a big tour? Because a real person is looking at your
Right.
pitch. So it's really important that you just put your best foot forward, okay?
And remember, you're being pitched. You're there's like literally millions of songs probably being pitched every day to them. Because everybody is trying to get on these Spotify playlists, and so they are looking. They're checking. So your TikToks. Like, how is your TikTok doing? Have you made a viral sound? Kind of for that. Are you saying that you're promoting? Are they seeing that you're really promoting? Do you have any kind of buzz? And that doesn't necessarily mean anything either. You might just be in an oversaturated market, and make sure you're taking advantage of canvases as well, which are little short videos that you can upload to your thing. So you have a little visualizer that goes with your song, so.
Yeah, and playlist last one on this one. We're on number 2 right now, but playlist curators, not just official Spotify playlist curators, but all the playlist curators. A part of what they're gonna do is that if they are interested in you and your song, they probably are gonna click through to your Instagram, to one of your social medias, and it actually makes a difference, right? So we had one official from Spotify talking about you need to make sure that the actual Instagram that you have matches the feel, the sonic
Yep.
vibe of what you're doing. If you're like a death metal
Right.
rock artist and your profile is like, oh, look at my kids and this is my wife, like that's all fine, but that doesn't quite match. So that does in fact impact it. So when you're pitching, most important is what you actually send. You want to send it 30 or plus more days, okay? And you want to make sure that your social media kind of matches what you're doing.
I love that. It's so important. I never say this, but I actually click through a lot on Spotify because I discover artists all the time on Spotify, and that's the first thing I look at their bio. So have a fun bio because I look at your bio, so don't make it all stiff. But I click to their social because that's what I'm like. Oh, how's this artist doing? Now I'm gonna go over to Instagram. That's the first place I go from Spotify, and I actually click through a lot of artists.
And so does the Spotify playlist curators. All right, so then number 3 on why releasing music on Spotify is pointless if you don't do these things. Number 3 is going to be getting the actual Spotify algorithm to love you, okay? This is how you're going to do it. So you can actually look this up. It's Musicstax, okay? So music and then stax.com. I'll pull it up while we're chatting, but musicstax.com. You can look yourself up. You can literally look up your song and see where you sit on the popularity scale. And also it's kind of cool because it tells you like the BPM, the key of your song, all kinds of things. So you can look at that just to get some metrics, but the actual algorithm is impacted by the following. Number 1, are people listening to the song on repeat? The length of time, it's just like YouTube. The length of time that they actually stay on the song matters. So if you are paying for bots to go and get you fake streams, the bot is going to play the song for a few seconds and then click off. So that actually murders your algorithm.
Works against you. And they know that you're doing it too. Like Spotify is like the most advanced system, you know what I mean, for this stuff. They know what's going on.
Yeah, I don't think they have a content ID system in place in the same kind of way that like YouTube does for monitoring copyright, but they have other ways of dealing with copyright infringement. All right, so we're going to make sure people are putting the song on repeat. Okay. Now, if you are a small artist with a small audience, because your audience will go and play the song and add it to their own playlists and do those small things, that's going to help with the algorithm and it's going to trigger new song discovery, which we're going to talk about in a second. Okay.
So can you just elaborate just a little bit more on that and just like how important it is to have your audience add it to their personal playlists, like as part of the campaign? So when you're doing it, you don't just want you want the pre-saves, right? You want those. You want the actual streams of the day. You want them to heart it, and you want them to go the extra mile and just add it to one of their playlists because Spotify will count those. They'll know, and then they'll go like, oh, what's going on here? Especially if you're getting it going, if you're running a campaign over a couple of weeks period, and you're just constantly growing that up, you might get that ad later.
Yeah. So, and we'll talk about this in one of the next sections. So as far as the importance of pre-saves, but real fast, I promise to show you Musicstax. This is Musicstax. So you go in, you go to this home. I just put in Drake. So Drake, we're looking at Rich Flex. And so you go down, it gives you some info. How long's the song? What's the tempo? What's the key? How loud is it? So it gives you lots of fun things. But then here's the popularity score as it relates to Spotify. And then there's some other stuff. So you can actually get pretty transparent metrics just to kind of see how your stuff is lining up with other stuff on Spotify.
And you can also use those kind of things to when you're making music. Not that you should just kind of try to cater and try to do an audience, but as you're pitching, as you're looking at different playlists that are popular, like you're kind of thinking what would fit on these playlists. Like if you're in a completely different genre, but you're trying to get pitched for a certain thing or whatever, or you think like if you're just so out there, just remember those things.
Yeah, and that's if you're going to like self-curated playlists, right? So that are non-Spotify. Anyway, moving on. Now let's talk about the 4th thing that you're not doing, which is why it's pointless for you to release music on Spotify. And that's you're not emailing your fans at midnight. Think about this for a second. Everything we're talking about, including with pre-saves, which I'm just going to dive into right now, you get people to pre-save as much as possible because what it does is as soon as the song comes out, because it's pre-saved, it dumps into the person's Spotify and it counts as a play. So they actually get all those plays right away, which tells Spotify consumption of the song is high. People are loving this. So that helps. But then also, if you are getting people through like your email list or if you do text messaging, I don't know what you do, wherever you kind of own your audience, and if it's email, send them an email right at midnight. Because if you wait 8 or 10 hours later until the next morning when you wake up, now it's told Spotify that no one listened to your song until all these hours later. So again, getting people to go and play it immediately and then also posting on your social media immediately, super important. Okay?
Which
So that's
sometimes
number
can be
4.
easier said than done because you kind of have to educate your audience at a certain point. So if you think you're just going to
Yep.
post a picture and you're like, hey, I need you to pre-save this, and you're going to do some long story, people will they'll just see the picture and they'll just hit it. It's kind of like that's why you should utilize your lives anyway. If you're an artist, your live feature on all the platforms and your stories that are kind of temporary things, and just kind of use those for video things and explain to them why it's so important and what it actually does, and include a link. Make it as easy for your audience as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So as far as kind of getting the people in right away, super, super important. So then I think we're on number 5 now. I lost track. So now it's release day.
Mm.
Okay. And so since it's release day, you have to have time to respond to everyone on all the social media platforms all day long and be DMing because again, it's that activity that's going to generate the interest and tells Spotify, hey, people love the song, right? The 100 people who heard it, 99 of them listened to it all the way through, and some of them, repeated it. So be on social media, be posting multiple times, and then that's what actually puts you on the release radar on Spotify.
You want
What
that?
does release radar do?
I'll tell you what, release radar is probably my most important playlist that I have, that I check every Friday as soon as something goes, that's one of my artists that I follow or something that it really wants to suggest to me. My release radar rarely gets it wrong for me. So that's why
Hmm.
it's one that I'm always going to. If it's discovered new artists, if it's, just letting me know, I didn't even know a release came out because I'm not paying attention to everything that comes on social media. So important. You want to be on that release radar because that goes in everybody's personal thing. So that's why it's so important that they're following you. They're not just going to your song and listening to it. You always want to encourage active participation with your pages. Anything.
Yeah.
Clicking, if they only click 1 out of 5 things, like get that one thing. Just get it clicked.
Yeah, and so we had talked as far as the first part of this, get on Spotify for Artists because it also tells you all your metrics, right? So this is on the homepage of
Mm.
my phone, so I remember to look at it fairly regularly because it tells you what playlist are you on, when did you have spikes, what are your literal plays every single day, and did you get on release radar? How many people heard you through the release radar? All the things.
And it's an
So make sure you
app.
go
So
and get
yeah,
it.
you can have it on your phone. Yeah, you can have it on your phone. You can look at it
Yep.
on the web. So it's super convenient. So like
Yep.
if you're just chilling in an airport or whatever it is you're doing, you can check your analytics.
Absolutely. Okay. And then the last thing when it comes to if you aren't doing this collectively with all the other things, it's pointless for you to release music on Spotify, and that's you're not advertising it, right? So this goes
Mm.
hand in hand with not just kind of promoting it, but Spotify Marquee, right? So this is a tool where you can
Mhm.
literally advertise through Spotify. And although I don't want you going and dumping money into paid ads, which may or may not have a return for you, again, if we're thinking about the timing of this, if we are promoting it to your fans, right, as soon as the song comes out, that's going to drive up streams. So
Right.
that can potentially help the algorithm. It can help us to get on that release radar. And, the only thing you should know is that you need to have at least 1,000 followers on Spotify in order to use that tool. But
I
collectively,
mean, would
if you
you?
do all these things, then you're going to have a much stronger release. People are going to hear your release, right?
Mm.
And you'll want to release more music.
No, I think that's it. You have to do it right. And if you're promoting your song, if you're doing a 30-day promotion, then if you've seen other videos, we tell you that you should kind of leak your little bit of your song. You've already released some shorts to it, and so that's a great tool. We have other episodes on this channel talking about marketing and ads and how you should actually put your money and how you do them. But if you're testing the market with your hardcore audience and you're seeing a big response from little snippets that you're playing, that's telling you that you should probably dump some money into it because it's working with your
Yeah.
audience. They're responding. Like always, if you're testing this stuff out, we always tell you, test the stuff out to determine your audience will tell you what you need to advertise to the rest of the world. Get your audience reaction first.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so, Amber had a great question. Let me hit this. Do you do this if you're just starting out and trying things out? So, to your point, you had said kind of doing market research if you have new releases.
Mm.
Every single time you have a new release, do all these things, and you're going to figure out what works for your audience. What did you do good? What didn't you do good? If you don't do any of this, it's pointless for you to release your music on Spotify.